Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It is one of the most beautiful, sought after places to have your wedding, a destination wedding, if you will. And she facilitates all of it. I'm talking about Hawaii, Kona Beach specifically. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into something we haven't talked about since we've gotten together: vow renewals, renewing your vows. Beautiful way to do it, and so much more. She is the woman behind Simple Kona Beach Weddings. I love the title of that because it should be simple. But who do you call? You reach out to Becky Ringler, who's our professional of the year. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. It's a beautiful morning here in Hawaii. So I'm glad to be here, Steve, with you talking about something I love very much. So glad to be here today.
I have a quiet chuckle inside. Every time you say it's a beautiful morning in Hawaii, is there ever, even if a rainstorm rolls through, you kind of know it's going to get sunny, most likely later in the day.
Yeah.
It's always a beautiful morning, I guess.
Yeah. And even if it is like a rainy morning, which is again very rare, especially on this side of the island, it's kind of nice to have a little change up every now and then. Like, oh, it's a little bit of rain, it's a little cozy. And then, of course, like you said, it almost never rains the entire day here. That is a very rare occasion. Usually it ends up sunny at some point during the day.
You tapped
So,
into my curiosity there because I was just going to ask you, do you remember a time where there were multiple days of rain outside of, a tropical storm? Just, yeah, it's kind of rainy. 2 days in a row, three.
no, only if there's a big storm, like a huge tropical storm coming through. Uh, Otherwise, it doesn't usually like it just rains in pockets. And the other reason, by the way, Steve, sometimes we talk about, or I don't know if we've spoken about the times of day to get married, but it's usually morning or sunset because it usually doesn't rain at morning. And like, and I shouldn't say morning is a general term here. We don't do sunrise on this side of the island. There is no sunrise over here. We're on the west side, obviously. But yeah, it's usually pretty nice in the morning and it's usually pretty nice at sunset. And then if it rains kind of somewhere in the middle of the day. So yeah, it's
That's
pretty good.
also duly noted, especially if we're going to do our vow renewal. So I'm surprised we haven't gotten to that so far in talking about your weddings in Hawaii. But have you done a fair amount of vow renewals?
Yes. Yes, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vow renewals. I would say that the most common time I pick up on vow renewals in the summer because people are here with their families, they're on family vacations. So I would say not all the time, but most typically we see more during the summer than the rest of the year, although they happen all the time, all around the year for sure.
So it seems
Yeah.
like most of the time when people come there with others, it's kind of built around a vacation.
Yeah. So vow renewals happen in two things. Either the couple's on an anniversary trip and they're there alone, like it's a milestone anniversary and they're taking a special trip together and then they want to have a private vow renewal. Most often though, I would say that they're there with their family and usually extended family, their kids and often grandkids, or sometimes they're there with their children because their kids have said, "Oh, I'm sad we missed your wedding." And so that's a way for them to have their children witness their wedding in a sense. Um, we get a lot of people who what they really wanted to do the first time was get married in Hawaii. So this is their way
Mm.
to have their Hawaii wedding, but as a vow renewal. Um, and yeah, it's really fun. There's a lot of different ways this can happen. Also, Steve, sometimes the kids plan it as a surprise for their parents. Sometimes a spouse surprises another, and
Hmm.
sometimes the couple plans together. And there's a lot of nuances in how that goes. So happy to discuss that a little bit more because that's kind
Let's
of
dig
important.
into that. The
Yeah.
surprise wedding or vow renewal. That seems like a challenge, especially when it's at a destination like Hawaii. How do you pull that off? Or give an example of how you did it.
So, okay, so like for instance, for a vow renewal, it is either again like a child or a family member who's planning this, or the spouse. One spouse wants to surprise another. So when it's like a child, usually a grown child, I did have one teenager once who wanted to surprise his parents with a vow renewal, and he had an adult, like a friend of the family, help him with the things because he was not young enough or he was not old enough to sign a contract. But other than that, it's usually an adult child and or a spouse. But if we have an adult child or other family member planning to surprise their parents with a vow renewal, usually it's like a 50th or 40th or 60th. Um, I and I guess the same goes actually if it's a spouse, one spouse planning for another. I always have a talk with them and I say, hey, we can totally do this as a surprise, but how are they with surprises? Because there's a couple ways to surprise your loved one with a vow renewal. Um, and I usually suggest that they still tell them as a surprise, either before they leave for their trip or on the trip before the day that it happens, for many reasons. One, if it's a total surprise, which I have done total surprise vow renewals, the person or people are in shock for like half the ceremony and then they finally arrive, but it's like the ceremony's over by the time they're realizing what's happened and that it's there. The ceremony is like over and they've missed the enjoyment of it
I
is what I
get it.
feel. Yeah. And so I say like, hey, what I recommend if you're going to wait and do it on the trip to surprise them, then usually couch it in something like, hey, we're going to do a family photo shoot. So they bring nice outfits or they bring something, or there's enough time to buy the dress that they really want. Or they tell them ahead of time before the trip so that they have some fun in the anticipation and in the planning of it, which I think is really important. Most of the time, the guys are like, whatever, that's fine with me. But typically, in my experience, the wife would like a little time to enjoy it. Um, would maybe like to choose what she's going to wear, wants to feel like, it's something really special. Um, and I have had a wife surprise her husband with a vow renewal, and he was just like in total shock, like the entire ceremony. Like she didn't tell him ahead of time. He finally came around, like right as we were ending, and was like really happy. But I feel like he missed the whole thing because he was like a total like deer in the headlights the whole
He's in
time. So
vacay mode.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
he's not even thinking that. So that
No,
I didn't expect, Becky, I didn't think it was we go down that road where one half of the couple surprises the other with the renewal. All
yeah.
good, but whoa, I mean, talk about deer in headlights and a surprise. I was thinking more of you get a bunch of people, we're all together on vacation, and then yeah, you go to a beach. Guess what, guys? We're getting married. Or
We've done we've done that before too. But
hmm,
usually it's one person surprising another with the fact that it's happening or the surprise. I have had people do a surprise wedding or a surprise vow renewal where nobody knows until they arrive. The couple knows, right? They know that they're getting married or that they're doing a vow renewal, but everybody else finds out when they arrive at the beach. That's not as common as the pre-surprise planning. And most often, I would say a husband will call me and say, hey, my wife has been hinting about this. I'd really love to do this. And then I have a lot of guidance for him because I feel like often he's not sure. And I'm like, we need to talk about your wife's personality here. How much ahead of time notice would she really like? How, like let's talk about that. Only once was there a total surprise for the wife that I recall, but he's like, she loves surprises. And she told me later that she thought she was pretty sure it was going to happen. So she was fine. But otherwise, most of the time people tell people ahead of time and it works out great. The
do
other
you
thing, Steve,
let me
though,
ask you
that,
before you go
yeah,
deeper.
yeah,
Um, do you think it's a good idea based on your experience? With a bunch of people and we're on vacation
yeah,
and the couple is planning either to get married or a vow renewal. Do you feel, and everybody's different and we don't judge anyone, but
yeah.
overall, do you think it's better to let the others know with some advance warning? Whether it's that morning, whether it's the day before, sit everybody down. Oh, it's so great to be here. Hey, by the way, we're getting married tomorrow on the beach. Surprise, everybody. So at least they have time to dress a certain way, do makeup, whatever it might be. Do you think that's a better idea?
I do. I do. I mean, generally speaking, people do. The only time I did a couple weeks ago at a surprise wedding, I mean, the couple knew, but they did not tell their kids until like 2 hours before. And they did that on purpose, but the kids were so excited. They knew their kids really well, and they thought this way. I'm not exactly sure the reasoning there, but their kids were so happy. They were thrilled. They had been waiting for this moment. They wanted them to get married. They were two kids from different, each had a couple of children. And it was a very joyous time. But there was, I think that they didn't want them, I don't know. They knew their kids, and they were kind of youngish, and they didn't want them to like, um, I don't know. There was a lot of emotions there, I think, for
So,
them.
so to overthink it in that
Yeah,
situation,
yeah.
maybe.
It
Okay.
it depends. It depends, but most of the time people tell people like, "Hey, by the way, we're getting married," or "Hey, by the way, there's a vow renewal." And most of the time when there is a vow renewal, like a spouse surprising the other spouse, everyone else is in on it. Everyone coming, the whole family knows except for that person, and then they surprise mom the morning of, or they surprise dad the morning of, or the kids surprise the parents either on a holiday that happens or a get together before the trip, and usually, by the way, when like a child plans this for their parents, the parents have indicated they would like this, that this is something they'd like to do. Um, and in fact, actually, Steve, the very, very first ceremony I ever did before I was even really a business was a vow renewal, 50th wedding anniversary vow renewals for some friends of mine. Well, the parents of some friends of ours. And again, they, even though the kids arranged it, they knew it was going to happen. And it was very lovely.
Mhm.
And then just this last November, we did a 10-year, we did their 60th wedding anniversary vow renewal for them. So they all came back to Hawaii, and and this time all the grandkids were there. It was a really, it was a really special moment, like a full circle moment for everybody to come back. And it was special for us too, because it was our very first, I want to say practice ceremony, maybe, that we did for somebody. So it was really beautiful. Yeah.
What are some
Um,
of the other things that we should keep in mind if we're going to do a call it a surprise of whatever magnitude?
um, a couple of things. Like, I mean, I feel like if you're gonna do a surprise of any sort, be sure to couch it. Like you could even say like, hey, we're going to be doing a photo shoot, or I want to do a family photo shoot, or something where the person knows that
Okay.
there's a special event for that day. Maybe they're going to a special dinner, so they pack some nice clothes, or you tell them soon enough in the trip so they can buy something here, if they want to get something special. Um, Flowers are another thing, like special lays, hopefully of someone who can give good guidance. I will always give guidance if nobody is here to give to give the guidance. I'm happy to lead that. But and the I will say this only happened once, actually twice. The husband had planned a surprise vow renewal for his wife, and one of the times he did tell her like right before, and she said she didn't want to do it. And that was very
Mm.
sad. I felt so bad for him. And then the second time was the woman, they had brought family with them. And she's like, oh, well, I wanted a chance to help with all of this. And then she hadn't realized that it had all been paid for and he was all set. And finally, her aunt was like, hey, he did this for you. It's all set and paid for. Because he was like, if she doesn't want to do it, I'm not going to do it now. I'm so sorry. I'm like, hey, it's all good. Like, I'm happy to like hold this for you for a little bit if you want to come back. But eventually when she found out, they did do it and it was great. But that's part of the other reason why it's always good to do it, to tell people ahead of time. That is very rare. I have done hundreds and hundreds of these, and that has only happened twice. And it's never happened. I don't think it's ever happened where the groom is like, no, I don't want to do that. Um, but it's always good to get a little read on your person and try not to keep too many secrets. If it's a secret, make sure that you're like, oh, I'm planning something special for our trip.
I
So,
love that idea, and that's why you're so good at what you do,
yeah,
because that's what I was thinking. If anything, you just want to look a certain way. Maybe, if you're a woman, you want to do your hair, whatever it might be, as opposed to I'm just showing up on a beach because we're going to have fun. So I love the family photo. Yeah, that's the one thing in this trip we're going to do. They're going to be on, Kona Beach or wherever. And at 3 p.m., just be there. We're taking, I got a professional photographer, family photos and everything, and then you surprise them with the wedding. See, I
yeah,
think for me that's even. it's more comfortable because at least you're in the mindset of an event and yeah, you're not dressed completely scrubby. You're
In fact, they might even arrange for hair and makeup. Also, if there's a family photo shoot, maybe they
hmm,
say, "Hey, why don't you go all out? Why don't you get hair and makeup done? Why don't you arrange for um,
yeah.
there's little things like that that is very easy. And like then people maybe coordinate their outfits and um and even if it is for a special anniversary, like say it's a 40th wedding anniversary and they can say, "Oh, mom, dad, we're going to highlight you. You guys should wear something special or we want you to look really nice."
Hmm.
Uh, there's a lot of things. A couple of little things, by the way. I would never do a wedding or vow renewal at 3 p.m. unless they're getting on a plane and that's the last time we can do it before they leave. It is the light's very harsh and it's very warm and crowded on the beach. So we don't usually do anything at 3. At least I don't. Again, I've had rare occasions where I break that rule, but most of the time we're closer to sunset, or it's in the morning. Better light for everybody, less crowded, much nicer. Um, so those are some things to take. And by
Hmm.
the way, there is no such thing as Kona Beach, FYI. We have many little beaches, and this is the Kona coast, but there's not just one beach called Kona Beach. There's no such place. So
I just threw that out there. I couldn't
no,
think of
I
the
know
name
you
of the
did.
beach.
And I wanted to just,
Kilauea.
people are confused. And also, Kona doesn't show up on the map as a place.
Wow.
We call it Kona, but it's Kailua Kona, which is very confusing because there is a Kailua in Oahu. But we are Kailua Kona. Everyone just calls it Kona. And there is a whole Kona coast here on the west coast of Hawaii. Um, so anyway,
What does Kona mean?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I
okay.
think, yeah,
I thought maybe there was
I don't
like
know if there's
a
a
deeper
meaning or not.
deeper meaning. So, question about sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. I always ask what pops in my head. Bugs and gnats
Oh,
late in
no.
the day. No issues.
That is the wonderful thing about Hawaii, by the beach. There are like no bugs here on the beach. I have no idea why. In fact, because we're on the dry side over here, we don't have a huge mosquito. Like I get eaten up by mosquitoes every time I go back east to visit my family in the summer. I'm just like amazed by the amount of mosquitoes. But for some reason here in Kona, in general, it is not that buggy. Now there are certain houses or places where it might be more buggy. They might have more tropical vegetation, but by the beach, typically there are no gnats, there's no mosquitoes, there's just no bugs. There's always a light breeze. Um, it is really heavenly. Is
Wow.
what I have to
Wow.
say.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
glad. I'm glad I asked that. I was afraid that you might say that, yeah, everyone's a gnats. I mean, but this just sounds like just, yeah. I'm on Long Island, i.e., island. I remember last summer going to a beach bar and a nice place. You get dressed up, it's out, band out there. There were like no-see-ums. I'm sure you've heard of those. Just
Yeah.
gnats you don't see, but you can feel them in your hair.
Oh
Everybody's
God.
scratching. Oh, there was not enough, no wind. Beautiful night, but just like, oh, my brain takes me right back there. Like that was not fun. We left. A bunch of us
Yeah.
said, let's go somewhere else, and it was a drive to go somewhere else because it was on the beach, kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
When it's nice, but sounds like it's always nice there.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, do you ever do any kind of refreshments or reception with any kind of light fare in terms of food and drink on the beach, or that's how you know, and you always go
Not
somewhere else?
typically.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of this is not to say you couldn't do that, but we have a lot of restrictions. Like you can't technically have alcohol on the beach here. That doesn't mean that if you did a champagne toast, no one's going to give you a hard time for a champagne toast if you want to do that.
Okay.
Um, but because the beach closes 30 minutes after sunset, you're not allowed to be on the beach 30 minutes after sunset ish. Um, there's not like and when the sun goes down here, we don't have a long twilight. So the sun goes down and you have like 30 minutes more of light and then it's just dark. So that's why they have that rule. And so for the most part, there's no like lingering afterwards. Now, occasionally, um, couples will bring some light things. We don't usually provide them because again, there are certain, I don't know how to put it.
Guidelines.
Yeah, there's certain guidelines that we do have some places here that do like these really cool little picnic setups, but you have to do it much earlier because then they still have to pick up everything. And
Mm,
also, it's not necessarily if you have a certain amount of time for photos, it's kind of photo wasting time, if that makes sense. Not that it's not beautiful, but it's not the best use of your time
You have a
with
limited amount of time, especially as you get close to sunset, which, as
yeah.
it sounds, that's the best time or one of the best times during the day. So you want to maximize all that time with ceremony, enjoy the beach, enjoy the moment, photos, and all of that. Why waste time on refreshments where you just get in the car or whatever vehicle and then go somewhere?
Yeah, usually people because the latest the sun ever sets here is 7:06. So it's perfect
Look at
after.
you, right down to the minute.
Oh yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
It's
really
like
the
7:06
latest?
at the solstice. It sets at 7:06 and it stays that way for quite a month. And then it starts creeping down. And then the earliest it ever sets is 5:44. So at the height of the winter solstice. So, but and then it'll go down by like a minute a day as we get closer. And then it goes up. And then as we hit sort of midsummer, it just stays that way for a really long time at the 7:06 mark. That's here in Kona. It is a little different every place that you go, which is why I have a very specific sunset calendar that I know pretty well at this point, but I always check. I always check. I can usually guess within the 5 minutes about when I think the sun will
That
set,
is so
depending.
cool. And
Yeah.
and more so that you know the exact time, like the max and the wow. And as you know, being from New York, yeah, in the middle of winter, it's like 4:20 when the sun sets. And
Oh
then when
yeah.
you then summertime, it's like 8:45-ish or whatever, and you still have twilight after that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
all these things very impactful knowing that there you don't have that twilight because in our
Right.
minds, coming from the mainland, well, I got about like half hour, at least 45 minutes. You can still see something and no, lights out.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is people worried, well, in the summer, like, gee, if I have a sunset ceremony, is it going to be like 10 o'clock by the time I'm done? And no, the nice thing is, it's always time for dinner after you're done. Like the latest you'll be eating is like 8, maximum 8:30 if
Right.
you want it. So it's great. It's a very that's why I love the sunset ones is because then people can go and have a really nice dinner or do the
Perfect.
celebration afterwards and it's an appropriate time also.
But the
So
difference is when it's five something in the middle of winter, it's not cold out.
no,
That's the big bonus. All right, so you give
yeah,
up a couple of hours of light. Now you have even more time in warm weather to have a
yeah.
nice little reception dinner. What's the closest from where you do the ceremonies on the beach, the closest nice restaurant? Not anything extravagant, but just a nice place that's got local flavor.
Um, well, there's no, okay, so where we do, it depends. I have some favorite places gathered in this one spot, and then we've got all the really nice dinners. And a lot of people do want to splurge. So we've got some places that are like, as a crow flies, like 5 minutes away. But if you have to drive because it's very slow, you don't even have to get back on the highway to get to some of these places. But you're at some really nice resorts. Um, those particular places are very close. But then if you do, I have a couple favorite beaches in town, and then we've got all sorts of places that again are like 5, 10 minutes away. And then from either place, you can also drive up north or if you're in the other place, you can drive to town. So nothing is more, I would say, than 30, maximum 40 minutes away, which sounds long if you're like in a town where everything is 5 minutes away. But in Hawaii, this is very close. It's like just to drive up the
Mm.
highway. There's
Yeah.
nothing else in between. Like it's not far. But
And it's
most
not
people,
that it is far, it's that you're traveling like this on certain roads. That's what it
yeah,
sounds like. Okay.
yeah,
Oh, I feel like I'm there. I
yeah.
feel like talking today, I have like a real, like true visual of being there. Final question. Does everybody get married on the beach, or there are a few that will go to a different destination there?
Oh, sure. I mean, we can do lots of times people, especially for vow renewals, bringing it back, people rent really nice houses. I'm happy to do a vow renewal at any rental house or if you own a house here, obviously.
Hmm.
And then I'm more flexible on time of day also because maybe there's shade in their yard or there it's we don't have to worry about beachgoers and that. I mean, the light is still not great in the middle of the day for photos, but so rental houses. Um, I've even done, I did a wedding once on a dive boat. The couple was huge. They were huge
Wow.
um,
Divers.
scuba divers.
Hmm.
And we did the wedding on the boat. And then we all went. snorkeling / scuba diving afterwards. I was on the boat with them the whole day. It was really fun. I don't typically do, people sometimes say, oh, can I do it by waterfall? Can I do this like really remote beach? And I don't typically do, the reason there are waterfalls is it rains a ton over in those places. That's on the other side of the island.
Uh,
Gorgeous. But there's a lot of restrictions near a lot of those waterfalls too. And it can be very, very rainy. So I usually just suggest they go get photos on another day by the waterfall in their wedding clothes after their wedding. Um, so yeah, but I usually stick to the beaches and or rental houses and or, like a boat. I would do sometimes you can take a helicopter to places and things. So there are options, just ask. But beach is
wow.
the most popular, I would say.
You're not going to find this information anywhere. Go Google, spend, days Googling it. You're there. This is what
Yeah.
you do. Hundreds of weddings. Becky, how do we connect with you?
So the best way is through my website, which is www.simplecona, Kona, beachweddings.com. So simplekonabeachweddings.com. And there is an S at the end of wedding. So weddings. I always say that just so that people know. So yes, and then you can just fill out the contact form on my site, and then we usually set up a Zoom call, and we go from there. It's really lovely.
Awesome talking with you today. And I truly feel I'm serious about it. I feel like I'm there with you. I see the
Right.
visual of the beach and like how you're setting the stage for everything. And just little nuggets of information. If you're considering Hawaii as a destination for your ceremony, again, you're not going to find this information anywhere. That's what you're the go-to. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it. We'll be right
Yeah.
back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.